meet you. Thank you for coming. Pleasure to meet you.
Pleasure to see you, Congressman.
Jim McGovern from Massachusetts.
Nice
to meet you.
Thank you very much. You're here.
President,
Hi
good
again.
to see you again.
Yes. You're welcome. Hi. Jason Crow from Colorado. Nice to meet you.
Adam Schiff from California.
You're very welcome.
Honored to meet you.
In what looks like a bit of a remake of Reservoir Dogs there, Nancy Pelosi and her crew of Democratic delegation went to meet President Zelensky in Ukraine over the weekend, an unannounced visit to meet him as well. And as you can see there, Zelensky did tweet out the interaction and the meeting that happened between him and a group of all of these representatives here. So let's look at his tweet there. He wrote out, meeting with Speaker of the US House of Representatives, Speaker Pelosi in Kyiv. The United States is a leader in Ukraine's strong support in the fight against Russian aggression. Thank you for helping to protect the sovereignty and territorial integrity of our state. So there's some preliminary thoughts that I would have had once I saw Pelosi and them walking out with these certain camera angles. But I was like, oh, Zelensky's tweeting this out. Maybe it's more for him. So let's look at some of these other details from this meeting that he mentioned to everyone in the world. Watch.
We believe that we are visiting you to say thank you for your fight for freedom, that we are on a frontier of freedom, and that your fight is a fight for everyone. And so our commitment is to be there for you until the fight is done. Of the United States.
So there they are. I'll get to what that award was, but there they are, having the full meeting. It's very cordial, and to point out how happy they are to see each other and all the support that's getting shown here. So some of the Democrats that were there, as you guys saw when they met, the original point was she was joined by several senior House Democrats on the trip. That include Representatives Gregory Meeks of New York. He chairs the House Foreign Affairs Committee. Adam Schiff of California, the chairman of the House Intelligence Panel. Jim McGovern of Massachusetts, who leads the House Rules Committee. Democratic Representatives Bill Keating of Massachusetts and Barbara Lee of California and Jason Crow of Colorado were also part of this whole delegation. That's according to her office. So she also went over to Poland afterwards and had more words to say about this meeting. It looks very pressy, am I right? So here's some of the things that she said. We were proud to convey to him a message of unity from the Congress of the US, a message of appreciation from the American people for his leadership and admiration to the people of Ukraine for their courage. America stands with Ukraine. We stand with Ukraine until victory is won. And we stand with NATO. So again, Jackson, what I was thinking was this is such a photo op and people are gonna get for trouble for this. Like, oh, look at these Democrats going over there trying to make sure that there's some kind of a political motivation to make people like her more because of this when she's actually low in the poll numbers. So yeah, it was. But was it for her or was it for him? More details. Zelensky stressed the importance of the financial assistance in his meeting with Pelosi and the other lawmakers. The signals that the United States and President Biden are giving today are very important. These are recent strong steps in defense and financial support for Ukraine, as well as decisions on Lend-Lease. And we are grateful for that. So the US House of Representatives on Thursday passed the legislation, as he's mentioning there, that would allow Biden to use a World War II era law, which is known as Lend-Lease Act of 1941, to swiftly supply weapons to Ukraine on loan. That law was originally created to help forces fighting Nazi Germany and reflects the urgency in Congress to support the Ukrainian armed forces. So again, this seems to be all about Zelensky and not this delegation of Democrats. He even had a sign of appreciation for it and all that, and he handed her the Order of Princess Olga. That was that award that he gave at the end there. So Jackson, I guess the burning question, because this was in my mind, is this a blatant photo op, as you can see from many other politicians, or is this actually a bit of a peacekeeping thing where they're moving along to show their support and maybe get some things done here with Ukraine?
Well, above anything else, this is definitely more posturing than anything because that's the Democratic way. And I think that what I get most from this is a great example of why the general public is underwhelmed and unimpressed with the Democratic Party. And above all else, when there's a will, there truly is a way. You know, the Biden administration is able to find billions of dollars to send over to Ukraine. Do they need help? Yes. However, you know, we have an example of a horrible political mistake where you allowed the Trump administration to pass police reform, to pass the First Step Act, Yet under the Biden administration, we've made no more progress forward in that, even though that's what the Democratic Party is looking for. Marijuana hasn't been legalized. The minimum wage hasn't been raised. Build Back Better hasn't even been passed. And so we're going into the 2022 midterms and the 2024 election, primarily with nothing on our hands. Meanwhile, we can have Pelosi go overseas. We can send $33 billion additional dollars to Ukraine. But when it comes to domestic issues, the Democrats are just in a permanent lame duck session, even with the supermajority.
Now, so with that, because I was thinking that similar too, because when it comes to how much we can spend or the motivations behind actually getting something done, because again, I don't think this is something where it's tough, at least, for people to have enough pushback on something like this to be like, well, why aren't you doing something else? Because this is life or death. There's two major, well-known and talked about countries next door to each other, and one invades the other because there's a superpower. So that then this, I think, provides enough of a shield at least, or to be like, look, he needs it. What do you want us to do? Not help? And number two, when it comes to also partisan arguments, it pretty much highlights how one party seems to be in support of this country in need and was an ally, versus another party who many times there's fractures in it where they're like, well, I mean, you have to let Russia do what they're gonna do. This is just life, it's what it is. I think all these things went into play when it came to this, and they wanted to make sure that they were selling the need for this World War II era rule that they passed or that they're gonna utilize here. So it's almost like it disarms any kind of argument when it comes to it, even though it looks like such a blatant photo op. It's almost the smartest one I've seen, gotta be honest.
Yeah, because you can't be fully against our assistance of Ukraine, because it's a big deal just in terms of making sure that Putin can't get too bold in his approaches. But at the same time, people here are struggling with domestic issues, and so like you said, it really is a double-edged sword.
But maybe we can do both.
Yeah.
It just shows if we have the motivations, we can actually do these things. And also, I don't know if Republicans aren't gonna stand in the way as much of this, because again, look how gruesome everything is. It's a war. So, I mean, if maybe we can pose things that are happening at home as a war, the way Republicans like to do, or how devastating people are and how they're dying. I don't know, maybe something get a challenge, but we don't seem to be there yet.